Becky, do you remember towards the end of that first meeting? Because I have a vivid memory of you actually not saying a whole lot during our first meeting as, you know, the shelter rules first meeting kind of thing. And you didn't say much. And I'll be real honest,
That's
I've
shocking.
known you for a long time, and that was exactly, and I was like, either Becky really hates this idea, and it seemed like something, no, I think Becky would like this, but you didn't say much. And I don't know if you remember this, but it really stuck with me, is how you saw this a little bit differently around expectations. And I don't know if you remember.
You're gonna have to jog my memory
Okay.
a little bit more. You do?
Okay, so
Lisa, what?
Yeah.
I know where
All right,
Go.
Tell me, Lisa.
Was it about the advocates?
Yeah.
Handbook for the applicants.
Handbook for the advocates.
Oh, yes.
That it was really more the expectations
more
for
that.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, but that's exactly
Yeah.
right. It was more of, let's make sure that people are prepared for how they deal with situations, as opposed to having a rule. And so, again, because we have tended to hide behind rules before we did something like this, well, why can't I? Well, it's just the rule. It changed the whole, there is no absolutely no, I do remember that one of the goals I had set for myself is, I think I'll create a handbook. And what I found was it was overwhelming, because it would be a binder this big, because you never know what situation is
Yeah.
going to happen. And, you know, this many years later, there are still things that happen that I'm like, now I wonder what we do about that. And so you can't necessarily have, in my mind, I don't think you have the absolute, but I think what it did is it prompted us, even in the conversations at the table that I was talking about, is to go back and say, let's talk about some scenarios, and how do you feel about that? And how would a rule work, and how would not having a rule work, and what would you say? And so it made better advocates, because what it created were people who had to get to know people, and the way that you get to know people is you have conversations. And then what happens as a result of the conversation is, to borrow your phrase, you build trust. And when you build trust and you're working with someone, you don't have to hide behind a rule. You can even go and say, you know what, it's really okay for you to do that here. We don't have to have a rule, we can just have a conversation about it. And I think it's so much, it's just better.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the great word to say,
Yeah.
it's just better.
Well, I think it was building, I mean, it was taking what we were doing as advocates who were behind the, you know, on the sly, not enforcing the rules.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we were like going to women to say, hey, this is,
Right.
you're gonna get in trouble. And let's figure out a plan to be able to keep you in shelter.
So-and-so's gonna
And
have
so,
a rule.
you know, don't tell anybody, but, which, you know, that didn't feel right either, that we were trying to sneak around
Yeah.
from, you know, whether it was leadership or the rules or following policy, but we were doing that, but it's making it that this is the right thing, this is
Yeah.
the best practice to do.
And the carryover from shift to shift to shift.
Yeah.
To where if you're working in the daytime
Yeah.
shift and you're working on the night shift, or you're working on the weekend, that there's the carryover.
And to have the
from shift to shift.
consistency.
Yeah.
You needed to be able to have the consistency, and I'm gonna go back to thinking about trauma-informed care, of trustworthiness,
Mhm.
that you needed to, we were setting up a system where there wasn't trust.
Yes.
And where it could be that the daytime shift were going to be consistent and enforce the rules, and the evening was not going to.
Right.
But then if you change things up, then what I might be able to get away with in the evening, I couldn't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's just not a safe environment.
And it creates chaos for the staff,
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
with each other, because during the day, this is
Tore them
okay,
apart.
but now at night, this isn't okay.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, so-and-so's not here, so now it's okay again, and it's silliness is really what it is.
Well, and what I really like too, with the expectation piece of it, because what I do remember you saying is, why do we have expectations for the people that are coming to us for services?
That's good. That's
But that it really is about, we need to be clear about what somebody who's coming to us for services can expect from us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that goes right along with the trauma-informed piece of it.
I think it was important too, and I know part of our process was to, for those staff who were concerned, who did have some concerns about safety, to be able to work with them. And, you know, you can't give assurances that everything's gonna work, but I know with our staff, I remember talking to the shelter manager at the time, was if this doesn't work out, and it was curfew.
Yes.
You know, her concern was, if I don't have a curfew, then residents are going to stay out all night and come home drunk, and then it's gonna be chaos. And I want people, if they're gonna do that, I want them to come in at 10 when I have more staff. And it was like, look, if it's total chaos and it doesn't work and it causes all sorts of safety risks, we can always change back.
Mhm.
But let's try.
Yeah.
Let's give it a try, see what happens, and we can discuss it later. And it ended up being fine.
Yeah.
I mean, we have no more problems with the rules than we did with, without.
But the difficulty, and it's really not difficult, because it is part of our jobs, is what that would require you to do then, is safety plan. Because honestly, if you wanna go out to the bar and stay till 2 AM, that's your choice. But then shouldn't we have a conversation around safety planning, and is it your best choice?
Yeah.
And so, it's that constant question of, is this really your best choice? And if it is, so be it. Like, I don't have control over what choices you make, any more than you have control over what choices I make.
Yeah.
But it does require, again, I harping on conversations already, but it does require having those difficult conversations. And somewhere in that, it becomes okay.
Right. And it doesn't mean that you have no expectations when that person comes in.
Right.
Because I think that was another misunderstanding, misconception about what this was all about, was that this was going to be, anything goes,
Right.
and you can just come home and it's a free-for-all. It was like, no, you have to have those conversations of, yes, if you make that choice and you are going to come back into shelter, there's still a whole shelter full of adults and children.
Right.
And we have to be able to maintain their safety and well-being. And I think that that's something that we, to this day, continue to struggle with, of how do you balance out the needs of the individual versus the community.
Yeah.
Well, I always say, it's the, do you forsake the many for the one? And we don't. I mean, we can't.
We can't.
We still can do everything that we can to meet the needs of the one, but if the reality is the needs of the one is compromising everyone
Yeah,
else's
yeah,
safety,
yeah.
then we have to have that conversation. It doesn't mean you punish the one even, but it still means that you have to process
Yeah.
through that and what's best for the entire group.
Exactly.
Even in our setup, we still have
Yeah.
to do that.
Well, and I always appreciated what I think was kind of your mantra, Lisa, which was try it. If it doesn't work, we can either go back or we'll try something
Try
else.
something else.
But we don't, just because it doesn't work doesn't mean you're stuck with it not working.
Right.
That you continue, it continues to evolve.
Right.
Yeah.